Hi guys, welcome to the Little Miss Tony's Cooking Show from Tony's Little Bambinos in Merrill, Michigan. And today we're gonna have celery pork chops with noodles and fresh corn. So we're gonna start out with giving you the ingredients for the pork chops. And I've got 4 center cut pork chops, not really thick. And I have some oil, some butter, and of course celery, onion, and the red pepper. And we're gonna use flour, salt, pepper, thyme, Parmesan, corn, some milk, and some noodles. Okay, so we're gonna start out by getting our pans ready. Gonna turn this on medium high, and we're gonna turn our water on for our noodles. We're gonna start out by giving it just about a minute, and then we'll warm our oil and stuff up. And let's get our celery out. Now, you can use whatever part of the celery you want to, except for the bottom part. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut up some celery here. I'm gonna cut it up in rather small pieces. The recipe here is kind of a recipe that my mother used to use when I was a kid. And I've just kind of changed this around a little bit. And as you go along, you don't have to throw away these flakes right here, the leaves. They're really good. They're great in spaghetti sauce, great in potato salad. I mean, I like to use them better than I use like celery salt or celery seed. So what we're gonna do is, we've got about 4 stalks. We're gonna dice them up really small. This is like a standard recipe. This is gonna show you how to make soups with this too, because actually this is what this is celery soup with a couple little twists on it. But this is gonna teach you the staple to making soups. So what we're gonna do now is, let me grab a fork. Our pan feels pretty warm. Let's stick some oil in it. Probably a couple tablespoons. We're gonna cook 4 pork chops. Okay, now I'm gonna put these chops in. And then I'm gonna add some salt and pepper on top of them. What we're doing first is we're just browning our pork chops. Pork chops only take 5-10 minutes to cook. You want to make sure that pork chops cook at least to 145 degrees if you have a thermometer. Let me get rid of this. So while them are cooking, we have our celery diced up. Like I said, I'm not going to make a really huge batch, but you can keep going and make more and more if you'd like to. Now, we have our onion. So I'm gonna cut up the whole onion because I'm gonna use it to incorporate in with our corn. So we're gonna give that a little fine dice too. So I'm kinda gonna make like a checker box on the top of my onion. That makes it easier to dice it. All right. See, then you have most of your onion already diced for you. And we can continue with the rest of it. All right. Like that little skin there. So we have our onions and our celery. So when you're making a soup, you always start out with like onions, celery, carrots, and you can usually put it in your pan if you browned your meat first, or if you're just making meatless soup. It's all gonna be like the same. So, see how my pork chop's sticking right here? This one didn't. These are sticking. That means they're not ready to flip yet. So we're just gonna leave them be. Let them sit and cook. We've got this ready. And I like to use a little bit of red pepper. So we're gonna incorporate this into the recipe to combine everything together into one dish. That would probably be enough. I've already took my corn right here. I've already took my corn off the cob. Believe it or not, this is probably 2 cups worth of corn, and it isn't even 2 ears of corn. So it is really beneficial to buy your own corn. And I love raw corn, but I like to taste it to see whether or not it needs sugar or if it's sweet enough on its own. And that is really sweet on its own, so you don't need to add any sugar. So this is pretty much all the dicing and cooking you're gonna do. This is a really good recipe, really fast. So we have everything all cut up. Gonna check our chops again. See, now they're moving. All but one. So we're gonna let them go ahead and play in there and let them rest and cook up. So our water's boiling. So I'm gonna add, this is for 2 people, possibly 3, matter on how you eat, but I don't know, but I eat 2 pork chops. And so does my husband. So we put our noodles in the water, get them going. Let's give it a little bit of sea salt. And that's off with that. That's all we need to do with this, is let this cook for a minute, and then we'll drain that. And these are no yolk egg noodles. And the reason why I like to use no yolk egg noodles in certain dishes is because they don't stick and they incorporate the food really, really well. So that's why I use them. If you can't make your own, that's what I like to use next. Okay, our 1 pork chop is still being difficult with us, so we'll let that continue. And what we're gonna do is, after the pork chops are cooked, we're gonna pull them off, and we're gonna set them to the side for a second. So I'll get my plate right here. And while we're waiting for that, we might as well start on our corn. Get this on low, and let's get ourselves some butter. So like I said, this is about 1.5 ears of corn. Let's start out with 2 tablespoons of butter. And let's let this go for a second. And then we're gonna add our corn, our salt, pepper, a little bit of red pepper, a little bit of onions. All right, she's almost ready. She's coming around on the corners. And our butter's melting away here. All right, let's get our little bit of onions in. Not a lot. A little bit of red pepper. Stir our noodles. We're gonna have dinner here ready in at least a half hour. I mean, pork chops don't take very long, and the only thing is you gotta be ready, and you're gonna have to stand here. And I mean, not stand here because you have to watch them really close, but you're gonna stand here if you want dinner ready in a half hour. You're gonna get ready, everything ready, and you're gonna do it all at once. All right. Okay, we're cooking away. Move them around a little bit. We have a little piece right there that needs to cook. Like I said, pork chops don't take very long. If you overcook them, they're gonna get really tough. Then, like I always tell you, might as well keep right on cooking them until you cook them to death and they turn tender again. All right, there's the noodles. Let's add a little salt and pepper to our corn mixture. Little pepper. Little salt, just a little hair at a time. Let's add a little more salt and pepper to our pork chop. That's where you're going to get all your flavor from. See, the pork chops are bleeding out right there. Whoops, which is what you want. Just let them cook just a little bit more. Make sure they're all browning. Oh, I love the smell of pork chops cooking. So actually, pork chops are one of my favorite dishes. I love breaded pork chops like this, pork chop medallions, any kind of pork chop, but pork chops are actually one of my favorite meats. I call pork the other white meat because it's great. So, let's check our noodles. They're working away. They got about a few more minutes. Now people say, ask me a question, well, how much water do I use for noodles? How much water do I use for pasta? I say, make sure you have more water than you do noodles. So when you put the noodles in your water, make sure you at least have a good 1.5 inches of clearance between where your noodles are gonna expand. Always salt your water, whether you're making pasta, ravioli, noodles, whatever kind of dish you're making, always salt it. So our onions and our red peppers are cooking. So because our corn is raw, we need to cook our corn too. So we're gonna stick our corn in there. I told you guys, doesn't it make a lot? It's gonna cook down a little bit, but it's not gonna cook down a whole lot. So most of the butter is absorbed. So what I like to do right now is take and maybe add a little more butter to it. I love buttery corn. So I'm gonna add another couple tablespoons, nothing. This is unsalted butter, but it's still a lot of butter, but it's unsalted. So we'll let that cook. And we're working our way, making away. I think our pork chops are about ready to flip again. All right, this one has a nice sear on it. This one's ready. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. This one right here has a nice black brown sear on it. See how it's crisping a little bit on the ends? That's what we want from these two. So I find sometimes you have to flip your stuff around in the pan. Oh, it's like the little tenderloin of the pork chop. Bono. No, Mr. Steve. All right, this one's ready. Oh, beautiful. Our pork chops are just gonna sit and rest for a minute. Let's give this a little stir. So you're kind of doing everything at once here, but this is the way to do it and get your dinner on the table on time. So I'm gonna taste my corn and make sure, I have to find any excuse to taste it. I'm gonna taste it, make sure I have enough salt, pepper, spices. Whoop. Good. Guess I got to get rid of that spoon. Okay, now we'll pull our pork chops, stick our pork chops over to the side, turn this down a little bit lower. Let's let them rest for a second. Get our noodles out of the way. All right, we're gonna add a little bit of oil. Now we're gonna add our celery and our onions and our little red pepper. Now in the summertime when I do corn like this, I love to stick jalapenos in it. And so does Steven, he loves jalapenos. All right, so we're back at just giving this a little flip. Get just a little more oil. Maybe a little slab of butter. So you don't really have to buy a lot of onion, a lot of celery, a lot of red pepper. I mean, this is great if you're looking for what to do with your little leftovers. So it's pulling the bits and pieces from the bottom of the pan. That's what you want. So you're pulling in your pork flavor. All right, let's let her set for a second. Check our noodles again. All right, so you don't want your noodles mushy, which is the great thing about no yolk noodles. So we're gonna test it. You say they're a little tough, but they're not real tough. They need to cook maybe about 2 or 3 more minutes and they'll be ready. All right, working on our corn. Okay, we're pulling, all the pieces are pulling from the bottom while we're doing this. This is really a staple of any soup. You can do this with cauliflower, broccoli. It doesn't really matter. What you're doing is you're taking and you're putting butter in the bottom of your pan, oil in the bottom of your pan. Say you didn't even have the pork chop stuff. If you're gonna make a standard soup, this is how you do it. It cooks up the veggies a little bit, tenderizes them. Let's add just a little more butter. That's about another teaspoon. And there's one more. All right, I'm gonna give her a little salt, a little pepper, just a little hair at a time. Piece de resistance. And now we're gonna get our flour ready. Because we're gonna let our butter melt. This only takes a couple minutes. You just wanna make sure that the veggies are softened, but they're not mushy. Let's give our heat a little elevation. Turn it up just a little. All right, stir our corn, and our noodles are ready to be drained. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run to the sink, drain our noodles, and then, well, this is finishing cooking, and that is cooking. I'll turn around, be right back. All right, guys, noodles are done. Let's just cover them so they stay warm and hot. I'm really famous for setting towels on fire, so if you see it, you better yell, Mr. Fritzler. All right, our corn is cooking. We're gonna turn that down on low for a minute. Our butter's ready, so now we're gonna get our flour in. So remember what I said, equal parts butter to equal parts flour. This is what you call making our roux for it. And because we're not making a huge amount, we're just making enough for our pork chops. Okay, we're gonna let that cook for a few seconds. And then we're gonna add our milk. This is a couple cups of milk. All right. A little bit at a time. Stir around. Now say this was cauliflower. You pull the cauliflower out first, guys, and then put your butter and your milk in the pan. And then you're gonna keep adding your milk. Now the thing about the pork chops on this is that the little not burnt, but the little brownness on the bottom of the pan is what's gonna give this flavor. All right. Just gonna let it cook for a second. You want your sauces browning. And it's thickening up. That's what we want. So let's see what our taste is. Not too bad. All right, we're gonna let it brown a little bit. We're gonna stick our pork chops in for 1 more minute. The juice from the pork chops are going right in the sauce also. Just keep spooning it over your chops. Guys, this is a great little recipe too, I'm telling you. So you're just gonna let it cook for a minute. And while we're letting it cook for a minute, we'll get our corn and stuff. Mr. Fritzler, what are you doing again? We're gonna get our corn and that ready, and our plates ready, because we're ready to eat. All right. We'll dish up our corn. I love messing with little bowls and stuff like that on our dishes. Just a different way to serve. When you see something on sale or something, little different ramekins, and which are little bowls like this, just pick them up. I mean, you never know when they're gonna come in so handy. All right, that takes care of that. We're gonna shut our pork chops off for a second. We have our noodles. Spoon some into the bowl. See what I said? This is so simple, guys. All right, now our pork chops have been sitting in the sauce. Woohoo! Hang on, Mama's making a mess. Mama Bam Bam's messy today. This part of the song always comes on. This is my father-in-law, Jim Fritzler. This is his music and his songs. He passed away last year. He's a great man, and I love listening to his music. I look forward to it on Thursdays, so I get to hear all his music every Thursday when we tape the show. All right, so you have pork chops, corn. See what we were talking about, our little bit of parsley over here. We're celebrating celery. So let's celebrate celery all together. Stick a little Parmigiano. And guys, you have pork chops with noodles and Parmesan corn with roasted red pepper. Okay guys, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have Steve come on over and we're gonna try the dish. Pick this up. We're gonna see if it passes the boss test. All right, Steven, are you ready to come over? This was fast and simple enough, guys. Didn't use a ton of ingredients. Mr. Fritzler, are you ready?
Hey, happy birthday, baby.
Thank you. It's a beautiful day today. Actually, the sun's coming out in Michigan for the first time. All right, sweetheart. This is celery pork chops, cream of celery sauce.
Really good.
With some buttered noodles and some corn.
All right, very good. Good job.
All right, guys. This is celery chops with noodles and corn. And I'm Denise. This is Steve. It's a Little Miss Tony cooking show from Tony's Little Bambinos in Merrill, Michigan. And we tell you bon appetit and ciao. Thank you very much.
Ciao. Ciao.